Well, hey there, hi there, ho there. You're as welcome as can be. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. It is a Monday night. It's the 10th of June, which is almost impossible to believe, but nevertheless, here we are. Um, I don't know if there's been, of the 300 plus shows that we've done at Stratosphere Lounge, 400, including all of the Stratosphere Studios. I think pretty much every one of them I talk about how I have to do a short show tonight. It's kind of it's part of the introduction. But this time I actually do have to kind of do kind of a short show. And the reason is on the 15th, I am heading up to Coeur d'Alene to do the first of three memorial services for the late Dick Rutan. I was going to be going up on the 15th, and that would have been okay for Stratosphere Lounge, but I'm actually going to be going on the 13th. And the reason I'm going on the 13th is because, by happy coincidence, while I was planning on being up there for the 15th for the first of this is the family invitation only kind of memorial. That's on the 15th, and I got a call from my friend Brent Regan up in Idaho who said, hey, we're having our Republican dinner on the night of the 14th. Would you like to go? And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. And they said, our guest is going to be, guest speaker is going to be Carrie Lake. And I said, oh, super. And then I thought about it for a few moments, and I said, hey, man, can you get me 7 minutes? If you can get me 7 minutes, I'm pretty sure I can blow people's mind if you give me 7 minutes. Because I would like to do 7 minutes of things to come in front of Carrie Lake, because I think she has an excellent chance of being the next Vice President of the United States, and she could end up being president of the United States. And it's always nice to be seen by those people who have, minor positions of authority, such as, president of the United States. I don't know if it's going to be streamed or filtered, Chuck the Merciless. I don't know, but I'm going to, they said, well, I have to check it. It's last minute. So he came back and said, well, I managed to talk him into it. She didn't, the chairman didn't really know who I was, which is really my fault. He said, don't worry, you won't be disappointed. And then they said, but if he does it, then he's going to have to introduce Carrie Lake. And I said, okay, fine. That's going to be great. So that'll be that. So reason I got to do a short show is I still have a lot of elements to put together for the memorial service for Dick, and I would have probably bailed on this show, but I'm not going to be here Thursday, so I didn't want to do that. I'm rocking the Hawaiian hair, by the way, still. And then the second memorial will be, they get progressively kind of bigger and more fun. The second one will be at Coeur d'Alene Airport on the 29th. That is actually open to the public. I'll put an invitation up there if you happen to be up there. Dick's last wishes, we walked into the room on the day he flew west, and he said, all right, here's what I want. I want if it's going to be a memorial service or anything like that, I said I want it to be in an airplane, in a hangar. I want to be surrounded by airplanes. I don't want anybody wearing anything more formal than a T-shirt. And I want a couple of big 55-gallon drums with the tops cut off, filled with ice and beer, and everybody just sit back and crack open a beer and talk about the good times. That's the memorial service I want. That's not the one that we're going to get on the 15th. That's going to be a little more formal. But the one on the 29th, which is open to the public in Coeur d'Alene, is going to be fun. And then there's going to be one at AirVenture. So I will be there for Oshkosh, I think at least 5 days. That may be pretty much all of it. We're coming in on the Starship, not the SpaceX Starship, the Burt Rutan Starship, the world's biggest long easy. And so I'll be emceeing that, and we'll be running the memorial video that I'm putting together now. And if any of you are going to be there for AirVenture, I am looking forward to seeing hi to everybody. So that'll be great. Yeah, right seat again is my hope. I've got a backup plan. I'm going to ask nicely if I can get the right seat, and if I can't, I'll take the seat in the cabin directly behind the right seat, and I'll just loosen up my tie and somewhere in just before we start the take a roller. So I'm looking forward to seeing a bunch of people there, and I think the event at Air Venture is going to be really, really fun, because I'm taking an awful lot of the memorial material is coming from America's Forgotten Heroes. So I didn't see any reason to write that twice, and that's pretty bouncy. So I've still got a little more writing to do, and I've still got a lot of video editing to do. The stuff for the event on the 15th will be a little bit simpler, a little more elegant, and then I'll have another 2 weeks before the 29th to kind of After Effects the heck out of that thing. So there's that. Dave Big Booty says, hail and farewell to William Anders. Yes. We lost another Apollo astronaut in a plane crash, actually. I don't believe he was flying. He was 90 years old just a couple days ago. Bill Anders took arguably the most famous picture ever taken. And that's the Earth rising over the moon. One of the most famous ever taken, without question. You could consider it to be the world's first selfie. And Bill Anders, with that one particular picture, managed to get more people in frame than any other human being in the history of the world before or since. Another friend of mine sent me a message about that. I heard about it, obviously. But I said, now the question is, will the chain go unbroken? In other words, will we get back to the moon before the last Apollo astronaut dies? I really, really would like that to happen. I would be I'm already bummed, but I'd be ashamed if it turned out that there was a period where there were no living moonwalkers. David Booty says, here we go. 6 people have been to lunar orbit. Aldrin, who would have guessed Aldrin? So Buzz Aldrin, Dave Scott, Charlie Duke. He's giving the last names. I, of course, being highly educated person I am. And you're wrong. I'm sorry to say. He's saying Aldrin, Scott, Duke, Schmidt, Lovell, and Hayes. Lovell's not with us anymore. Neither is Freddie Hayes. Aldrin, Dave Scott, Charlie Duke, and Harrison Schmidt. And fortunately, all of those 4 not only went to the moon, they actually walked on the moon. Aldrin on 11, Scott on 15, Duke on 16, and Schmidt on 17. Although Harrison Schmidt's looking pretty good. And Dave Scott, well, these guys got to figure out. I mean, you think, my God, what all these astronauts have to be there? They're like mid-90s, late. Lovell and Hayes are not still alive. Surely no. Are you serious? Can somebody confirm that? I thought Fred Hayes died shortly, not terribly long after 11. I mean, after the 13. And I was quite convinced that Lovell had passed away quite a while ago. I think we're down to 4. And neither Lovell nor Hayes actually walked on the moon, so I'm not saying this is no big deal. Swikert. They're still alive, Fred Hayes and Jim Lovell? Lovell's still alive? Huh. Okay, absolutely. I'm delighted. I am delighted. Believe me, I had no idea. I thought they were both gone. No. I'm very, very, very happy to hear that. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So 6 who've been to the moon, and of that 6, 4 who've walked on the moon. So that'll be really cool. So I've been working. I've lost 2 days of preparation for the memorial thing. I was going to have a little more stuff prepared for tonight, but I will tell you a couple things. Had a lot of clarity in my 4 days in Hawaii, and it took a while. The first day I was just wiped out. Second day, slept a lot. Third day I was feeling better. Fourth day feeling much better. We came back on the morning of the 5th day, and I was like completely fired up. Came back home, got back to the house. The next day I was feeling pretty motivated. The day after that I was back to being a hockey puck again. And I'm not saying this is the case, but I am convinced, I'm not convinced, I'm concerned that, that we've got some fairly serious black mold issues in the house that we're renting. This has been a very, very wet 2 or 3 years in a row. And I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with that before. If you have, thank you so much. Paraka the Rapper says, "Here, have some money," and so he's thrown me a $20 super chat. Thank you. That's so kind. I just love that. What am I leaving California? I don't know. But we look. I don't want to sound alarm bells yet or anything, but we're seeing indications of it. And has anybody ever dealt with it? Because it's one thing if I was tired all the time. Natasha and I are both really tired all the time. We both put on a lot of weight, although my wife didn't put on a lot of weight. I put on a lot of weight for both of us. And the mental fog and just the lack of motivation. I've never dealt with it before. I'm getting the water tested tomorrow. I don't want to go to the owner. The relationship we have with the owner of the house is just remarkable. It's just I've never ever experienced anything like that with a landlord. It's just the greatest guy. He's very happy to have us. We're very happy to be there. And then so we're gonna. I'm having the water tested tomorrow, and then we'll take a look at testing for the mold. So, has anybody dealt with any of those? One of the most common symptoms rather is like nasal problems. Neither one of us had any of those. Natasha's had some headache issues, but boy, people are saying you got to tear the house down. I've heard it was bad, but I don't know about that. Move out, gut the house, treat the wood, wait for months, then rebuild the house. It's that bad, huh? Leave California, move back to America. Well, I'm giving it continuous thought. Now, with all this said, look, none of it is obvious. None of it is. Natasha's spotlessly clean housekeeper. I'm not, but she is. And so that's what I'm thinking, 20 kilowatt ultraviolet lights. That's where I'm going with it. I want to go with the ultraviolet solution. But we are seeing some signs that there's water seepage under the house. And so, look, I don't want to fire off any alarm bells. It may not be that at all. But there's some indications. And now, the reason I know Chuck said it's got nothing to do with cleanliness. I understand that. What I'm saying is, if there were any visible signs of black mold in the house, on the walls or anything, we would have gotten this done quite a long time ago. But bleach turns black mold white. Vinegar may help with enough quantity. I know if it is there, it's going to be a big deal. It's not a trivial thing. I was hoping that we could beam some UV light at that nasty stuff. That'd be really cool. Oh, here we go. Submerged Dark says, I worked in HVAC. UV lights can help kill what's there if it's not seeping into the woodwork, but you also have to fix any leaks that might have caused it. We've got the house that we rent, the mold is inside the wood, yeah. The house that we rent, we love the house. It's an older house. It's from the 40s. So it's been around for a while. There is a way to test for it. I'm testing the water tomorrow morning because we also have a lot of calcium or something building up in the water. And the house, I've never had this problem before. The house that we rent, we love it. We love this house. This house has water pressure that I've never seen anywhere before. This house is the kind of water pressure where we have, by cracking the faucet 3/4 of the way, we will just instantly rupture a heavy-duty garden hose, a heavy-duty reinforced garden hose, not just a regular garden hose. 3/4 of the way, you put something on the end like it'll blow like the nozzle handle. Right? It's just insane, the water pressure at this place. Crazy water pressure. And because the water pressure is so high, there's kind of a continuous leaking, sort of a drip coming out of the hot water heater, which is the relief valve. If it gets too hot or expands too much, it just drips. So I think the water pressure is in there it's just so high that it's having a hard time managing itself. Well, if it's so, Merge says, if a house is that old, you might need to get it for more reasons than just mold. As far as pressure, you can get a pressure reducer installed on your main. Well, I don't get to decide whether the house gets gutted or not. It's not my house. Does it have central heating and air? It does. And of the time that we've been renting it for 7 years in May now, so we're in our 8th year, and the only major work that's been done on the house at all since we got there was the owner replaced the air conditioning. I want to say 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Love it. B. Durant says long COVID. I'm wondering if this has got something to do with it, because one thing that Natasha and I have both noticed is that we're both very low energy all the time, and when either one of us is out of the house for any period of time, sometimes even when she just goes for a drive, we feel much better. Now, I thought at first this might have been maybe a psychological thing or something, but maybe not. I would love to be able to just, I'm hoping. Again, this is all speculation. It may not be that at all. But if this is it, it's not my house. It's our landlord's house. Obviously, it's a rental house. He has another house which is newer and nicer, but we love it, and we'd hate to see that house go. We would hate it, and so my hope is, if this turns out to be it, it might be a combination of something where we can, put some serious UV light in there, and maybe do, maybe, I don't know if you can really tent the thing the way you can for insects, but I would imagine you could put some kind of bleachy kind of stuff into the air conditioning ducts, and maybe we just have to be out of the house for several days or a week or something. There are people that do this, so needless to say, there's that. And somebody mentioned an air scrubber, so he's the owner's been super consistent about changing the air conditioning filter, but I don't know how to explain this. I've just been through the whole business for how much I love this house, but on some level, if it turns out that that's it would be a bit of a relief, because both Natasha and I are not only mystified, we're kind of becoming kind of undone about how lethargic and brain fogged we are, and so on. So anyway, just happened to mention that, so I was going to have a little more done than I did. Now, let me tell you what I was thinking about when I was recuperating on the beach in Hawaii and on the flight back and everything. Fendi said he just spent 3 days going to movie theater to watch extended editions of Lord of the Rings on a movie theater. Wanted my 9 and 7.5-year-old to see them for the first time on the big screen. You're a fine parent. And check for carbon monoxide, says Susie. Is that Susie Lucy? Okay. We're going to check in for something. Started with the water because the water is the least expensive, and I don't drink. All I drink is. I'm from Florida, man. I drink sweet tea. I drink sweet tea with Splenda, so it's essentially 0 calories, and what was that? So I drink nothing but tap water, although it's boiled first. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. I'll let you guys know as we go. Anyway, so here's what I was thinking. Because I mentioned on Thursday I had some fun stuff to talk about. So I'm on the beach, and I'm just, on the last day there, and I'm starting to get some clarity. We do have a Brita filter. Do I still feel lethargic when outside the house? So the mood shouldn't affect you in the studio, right? No, it shouldn't, but I find that the earlier I get up, the more motivation I have. So, anyway. And look, this whole thing could be completely psychological. I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised. No, the house is fine. You're just nuts. Oh, well, that's a relief. And we should have a carbon monoxide detector. And radon. All right, that's next. We'll do them all. By God, we're just gonna detect the daylights out of everything. And my feeling on this is I haven't told the landlord about it, and I don't want to just yet. And what seems fair to me is he's been really good about this. We did have the air conditioning just plain stopped working. It had burned out sensor, temperature, or servo or something, some sort of thermocouple or something. He's very, very good about changing the indoor filters, but the outdoor filters, the big outdoor unit, it's a very brand new unit, it's very high energy efficiency, and no one had cleaned the outdoor external filters. You got these super fine veins that the guy had to come and clean it with oxygen. Had to just basically vacuum out all this dirt from all the yard work, and then clean the thing with oxygen. That was like, I don't know, $1,000 or something, and the landlord, cheerfully took that off the rent. So my feeling is we're going to do the tests. If the tests come back positive, then I'll talk to him about deducting it from the rent. If they come back negative, then that's just me being, paranoid. Darth Chucks the Merciless says something that's exceedingly kind and comforting to me. We all know you're nuts. You're just our kind of nuts. Yeah, that's about all you can hope for, I guess. So we're doing all this. Anyway, I just want to let you know. So while I was outside getting ultraviolet light and swimming a little bit, and my clarity was coming back to me, I was thinking, man, you're just sitting on some great stuff here, and this business of just spinning your wheels doing what you're doing is not smart. You need to get your butt in gear here. You're not 30. And then I started thinking about, well, what do I actually have? Coming back on the airplane, on my iPad, I found an outline of a Bible I did for the colonies, and I couldn't believe the level of detail, because the first thing that occurred to me is I need to write the pilot for the colonies. I mean, I've got somebody who's interested in producing it. I don't know if I definitely want to take the deal, but in any event, there's somebody who wants to see it, and that's Daily Wire. I'm not getting any pingbacks on the next history series for Daily Wire. I'm not in a real hurry to do it. I haven't heard back about the Frank Luke script, which doesn't really surprise me. But I looked at all of this. I mean, it just incredibly well thought out. I have the 5 storylines. Been talking about that forever. But I'd written 3 paragraph character descriptions for 4 or 5 characters per storyline. And I could, yes, the interview show's still in motion. I'm just waiting for this black paint to arrive, and got it's one damn thing after another. So all that stuff is still on. Things to Come is still on, and Mace Mattingly's still on. So anyway, I looked at all the stuff I had on the colonies. I thought I could write the pilot for this thing in 2-3 weeks. Now, that's my estimate, so let's make it 6. Especially after the Frank Luke thing. It doesn't surprise me there's no response to the Frank Luke script, because they asked me to write a movie. I wrote 5 movies. And it's very difficult for somebody to sit down and look at... I broke it down into... I should have broke it down into 5 scripts. I broke it down into 4, and they're 80, 90 pages each. Because if I handed in a 365-page script, which is what the total was, or something like that, they'd just lose their minds. But I also took a look at that, and then I thought, I can write that pilot. It's already written. And then I thought, well, what else do I have that I'm sitting on? I had 2 other things that I thought would be interesting. One of them is Big Bat Problems, which is not written, but is so acutely outlined, and I've seen the movie 40 times in my head, So I can start on that. And then finally, excuse me, when I saw the detail I had written on colonies, I realized I need to go back and read the final draft that I did on Aurora, which was probably around 2009 or so. And I haven't talked about that too much. I did a couple years ago. Uh, the original story of Aurora is about a mission to Jupiter, and it takes place in the near future, like 2030s. And that I spent 2 years working on. And I haven't read the final draft of Aurora. I bet I haven't read it in I bet I haven't read it in 11 or 12 years. And that's a really cool story. So I just thought I'd give you a little outline about that because I had a model that was built. I do have something to show you. I did pull a couple things. It wasn't completely useless. Give me 1 second to find these things. I had, when I was writing the thing back in 2007, 8, 5, actually I think it might have started in 2005 even. But when I was writing it, I'd found a modeler on sciencefictionmodelers.com or something, 3D modeler. And I hired this guy to do it. He was just a kid and didn't have to pay him too much because I didn't have too much to pay him. But he built this insanely great spaceship model, and and he built it to my specifications. So I would just block out spheres, and I want 4 big fuel tanks here like this, and I want this, and I want this here, and I want this, and just lay out literally almost like child blocks, and then the little pixies would go to work in the magical factory, and I'd wake up the next day and I'd get like amazing stuff. So give me a second here. I'll just show you a couple of renders of it. I'm not in love with the textures, but yeah. So I'll just show you 2 pictures each. And again, I'm gonna have to do it twice. So give me 1 second here. So we'll start with this one. Drop this into Twitch. Bring this up a bit. You can hold on to that for a second. Twitch, hang on there. YouTube, I'm coming. I'm coming. So this is the Aurora. And hang on there, YouTube, here it comes. You bastard. It always gives me trouble in... Alright, be that way. Try it one more time that way, and if that doesn't work, I'll try it another way. Okay. The key may be to release the mouse. Are they the same image? Yes. Okay, so I'm sorry, I had to get up there both streams. So here's basically the story of Aurora. There's this company called Aurora Aerospace, and this is before SpaceX was even started, by the way. I just want that known. It's not before SpaceX was successful. This is before SpaceX was even incorporated. No one had heard of SpaceX. And I had this idea for a company that was basically run by a bunch of motivated individuals, private company, and they were working on a nuclear engine. Now there's a bunch of different kinds of nuclear engines, and the one I was having them work on was a uranium gas core engine. And since there's no solid core, and since the uranium, it's a uranium fluoride gas, I think. So the uranium is actually in gaseous form. And because it's not touching any metal, it's all in a magnetic containment field, it can get really, really hot. So it's got a lot higher efficiency, much higher specific impulse than chemical rockets or simple solid core nuclear rocket. And the first scene in the movie is these 3 guys that are rushing, they're late, hauling ass across the Mojave Desert to get to this test. They're firing up this engine for the first time in this underground bunker, and virtually the entire prime flight crew is there, and secondary flight crew is there, and these guys are just racing to make it in time. And somebody's FaceTiming out. They're sending out a stream of this gas core engine being fired up in this underground test chamber, and the plexiglass is a foot thick, this kind of thing. And they turned this thing on. The guy said, "Oh my God, you won't believe this thing's incredible. The numbers, the U.S. we're getting 2,000 specific, And the guys are going, "Come on, come on, come on, we got to get there." And all of a sudden, they're just sitting there looking at this feed, and they're drooling. And next thing you know, the guy said, "Well," and the screen just goes like white, and there's just a split second, like one frame of like shattering something or other, and then up ahead, big old, not a mushroom cloud so much as a explosion. So their gas core engine explodes. And this is California in the 2030s, so there's an immediate effort to shut them down, and congressional investigations and all the rest of this stuff going on. And they want to shut them down because they're doing important, cool things, and they're not the government. And so the management of the company realizes that the only way that they can stay in business, if not only out of jail, is to get some kind of mission going quickly. And they find out, this is a true story, I couldn't believe that this actually worked out. So there was Project Nerva back in the late 60s, 68, 69 something, where they built, I want to say 35 or 40 nuclear rockets. And they all worked just great. And when I did the research on it, I couldn't believe it, because I needed this to happen, and I just thought I'd just have to invent it. But it turned out that there was one of these engines. I'll come back to the ship. I'm too much time on the ship. I don't get to see my fabulous expression, so I'll just turn that off for a second and come back to it in a minute. One of these engines that they actually built, that actually existed in Project Nerva, was never activated. The core never went critical, so it never became radioactive. And they tracked down, they've got pictures of the guys working, actual work. This is a real program, Project Nerva. Ended in 1970 or 71. We haven't talked about nuclear rockets since then, and starting to come back up again a little bit. And they're looking at these pictures, and they're looking at all the technicians, and all these guys died, and it's in Jackass Flats, exactly. And so they're saying this guy died in '93, this guy died in 2017, this guy, and they find this picture of this one guy. It looks like it was a really young technician, and they track him. They're looking for his death records, and it turns out there's no evidence that he died. They track him down. He's living out in the middle of nowhere. They go talk to this guy, and they ask him, and I got the name of the actual, I got, all of these engines had names. I got the name of the actual one that never was fired up, all of this stuff. And so they tracked this guy down, and they said, "Hey, what happened to the, I forget what it was called. Let's just say for the sake of it, it was called the Aquila. That's not it, but just for the sake of it. So what happened to the Aquila?" And they go, well, we built the Oberon 1, and then the 2, and then the 2 was really underperforming. We weren't really happy with that, so we built the Aquila. And then while we were building the Aquila, the Ravener came online, and the Ravener just went crazy great. So we never ended up taking the Aquila up to criticality. I said, "So what happened to it?" And he said, "Well, last time I saw it was sitting in a hangar at Jackass Flats, Nevada, which is where the actual Project Nerva was." And you just cut to this white unmarked semi-truck just hauling ass through the desert, and they get to this abandoned site, and they bolt cutter the doors, the gate, drive this thing in there, walk inside this dusty hangar, and there's just all these papers from like 1972 and magazines, and there's this huge thing in the corner with a big tarp and so on, and they pull this tarp off of this thing, and there sits this nuclear rocket. And then they got to figure out how to get the uranium for it, but the thing's all plumbed and ready to go. Now this thing has, 15-20% maybe of the efficiency that the rocket they thought that they were going to use to go to Mars in has. But they got to go, or if they don't go, then they're done. So they load this rocket up, and they take it back to their base, and then you got this engineer, the head guy is, I didn't just model him. I just copied it's been so long now. His name was Sam Grafe, but I basically just copied for the love of God, come on. Al Swearingen from Deadwood. I wanted to get Ian McShane to play him. So you got him, and then you got their head engineer, a guy named Reinhardt. And Galen Reinhardt is the actual kid that built that model that you just saw. And so they're saying we've got 8% of the thrust that we thought we were going to get, and 22% of the specific impulse. So they just look at the ship that they had being assembled in orbit, and the guy just takes the blueprints and just starts crossing things off, crossing things off. We're going to have to triple the size of the fuel tanks. We're going to have to carry much more fuel than we originally thought we would have to. We're going to have to get rid of all this superstructure and all of this spinning stuff, all this stuff they had for artificial gravity. How the hell are we going to do this? We go back to the model here. And this solution I liked very much. I thought it was cool, and it set up some really interesting story dynamics downstream. So if you look at this model, you can see there are 4 big fuel tanks there. And then you can see as you go, so if you start at the far right, you see the docking airlock. Then there's a regular cupola, just like on the space station. That footpad is because the thing basically docks with an asteroid and lands upside down on an asteroid, because there's zero gravity on an asteroid. So essentially it just nudges up against the top of it. And it starts processing ice water from asteroids, and so it's got to refuel, basically. And then those kind of, what are they? Those squashed octagon shapes, those are all cargo containers. And if you keep working your way back to the back, you can see those 2 horizontal sections. And they consist of 2 stories of living quarters, and then the white things on the edges, not the 4 white fuel tanks, the white things on the outside edges are the main habitation modules. That's where people spend most of their time. And those white bags are attached to the thing. It's all shielded relatively heavily, but they have to deal with the weight issue, with the mass. So what happens is, as time goes on, they use all their recyclable water. They pump whatever water they can't recover out into those bags, so as they get closer to Jupiter, these bags get more and more filled with what essentially becomes ice, which turns out to be a really good radiation shield. So the question is, how do you get, you got to have these guys under gravity. The mission's going to take 18 months. So you got to have artificial gravity. And the original ship was so much beefier and had so much more luxurious, energy source, that they're looking at this thing and they're saying, well, we can't attach these things. We can't carry the superstructure anymore. We can't put these things, they've got to be far enough out, because if you spin 1G at this close to the center of the core, your feet will be at 1G and your head will be at 0.9G, and you just can't have a radius that small. If you spin it high enough to get 1G or even close to 1G out where the white things are, the whole ship's going to the fuel tank's going to tear themselves off. So they got to figure out a way to get a low RPM, and that means they got to get these things further out of there. So the beautiful thing about this is those 2 HAB modules, the things on the left and right side, the whole long structure, the whole tube plus the padded thing at the end, are actually attached to the center by cable. And this is what the ship looks like when it's under acceleration. But it's only under acceleration for, a day or 2. And then it just goes into coast mode, and then the whole ship starts to rotate, and those 2 sections come out on cables, and they extend way, way out there. I'm trying to see if I have a picture handy of what that thing would look like with the HAB mods all the way out there. But the cool thing about that is it's like half the crew lives on one side, half the crew lives on the other. They've got these synchronized little transfer modules that go back and forth to the main core and then down to those things. It's a really clever design, and it just looks like it could fly tomorrow. I wanted it to look like it was made out of parts from International Space Station. Hang on a second. I know I've got at least one other image. Do I have one? Hang on. Nope. No, but this is a different image. So this is still in the same launch configuration, not in cruise configuration, but it's a different picture. So hang on a second. While I do this twice, I'll give you another look at this thing here. switch first. So same ship, different angle. Those are not solar cells on the back, because we're not dicking around. Those are radiators for the waste heat on the reactor. You get a much better look at the engine on this one. Hang on a second there, YouTube. I'm working on it. Okay, and it seems to be working so long as I don't do it too fast. So here's the same ship from a different angle, and there's more little, more view of the back end, and you can see how tiny that one little rocket engine is. But that's to scale, and a human being is about the size of just the exhaust bell. And you can see that they've got a radiation shield there that is synchronized with the position of those living modules, which are forward of the fuel tanks. And up at the very front on this angle, you can see some of the arm extension for the mechanism that boils the water out of the surface of cometary bodies and gets them to refuel their hydrogen and their oxygen and and all that stuff. So it's a really cool looking ship. But the thing that's most cool about it is how great it looks when it's in cruise mode, when it's rotating. Hang on a second. Give me 1 second here. I hate having to look for things while the show is actually on. It's just dead air and it's just the worst. But I've gone this far. Let me see if I might have animations here. Hang on a second. Where did I put them? I might have them on these other drives. What the heck? Let me turn these things on here. Hang on a second. Talk amongst yourselves. But I'm not happy with the texturing. Now, with this said, okay, this is the fun part. This model, when it was built, to get this frame, when I was writing the story, this frame would have been, one frame would have been probably a 40-minute render for this one frame. And now, because this model is all polygons, this model has 2 million polygons. And now I can take this thing and I can import it into Unreal 5.4 and use Nanite, and I can get this thing to render in, well, I could probably get it pretty close to 30 frames a second, not 1 frame per 40 minutes, 30 frames per second. No LODs. Nah, LODs are for sissies. Because it's not designed for a game. Although it makes sense to do a lower LOD version because you don't need to have because this thing, you get close enough, you can see the hexagon nuts. Let me see, do I have it here? Hang on a minute. Yeah, come on. Aurora components, that's a good sign. Hold on now. Hey, we're in business. Give me a second. Hey, great, I found it. So here's what it looks like in cruise mode. This is exactly what I was looking for. Hang on, we'll drop this into Twitch. Oh, baby. Yeah, this one is longer. Maybe I can turn that back one off without. What's behind this? And if I turn that up, and I turn that up, and I turn that off. Yeah. So hang on a second there, YouTube. I'm getting there. So this is what it looks like in cruise mode, and so the huge majority of the journey, it is in this configuration, and it's rotating slowly enough at the core so that near the center those fuel tanks aren't getting ripped off. But when you move the hab modules out that far, you get 1G because you've got a much bigger radius now. The whole ship rotates, by the way. It's not like there's a center section that doesn't spin, because that's impossible. I had some space guys who I was talking with when I was doing this script. I was saying, Well, couldn't I just have one part rotating and have the center move? I mean, the center stay stationary, right? And then just the one things just swing around. I've seen this how many times? How many times have you seen this? The Leonov in 2010, let's say, or a lot of the ships in Battlestar Galactica, or like especially on Babylon 5, the core stays stationary, and then there's a single rotating either ring or arm or whatever. And the guy said, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean? He said, you can't spin that around and have the core stay stationary. And I said, well, you just counter rotate it. And he said, oh, you mean counter rotate it with a frictionless bearing? I said, what? He said, think about it. You can, if you're trying to keep the center from spinning and you want to just spin those things, they're going to drag, the friction on the bearing is going to drag the core into rotation around it. Uh-oh. Muted on Twitch? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Sorry. So how long has that been without sound? It's been without sound for a while, isn't it? Okay, I'm so sorry. I was turning off background images and I turned off the microphone. Thank you, got it. Okay, hang on, I gotta go back. Sorry about that. Be nice to have an engineer. So let me just back up and say what I was saying. So, I'm sorry to repeat myself here, YouTube. Yeah. So here's the thing about this design. When it's in its cruise mode like this, it's rotating. The whole ship is rotating. It's not got a bearing there because the bearing like that is impossible. What I mean by that is, when I first talked to some actual space guys about this, I said, I'll just have the center part, you see the fuel tanks and all the rest of that stuff, I'll have that be stationary, and I'll just have the two booms just rotate around. And they said, that's impossible. And I said, no, it's not. You just counter-rotate it. Just have a gear that counter-rotates it. And they said, oh, yeah, you could have a bearing that you could use one of those frictionless bearings. And I said, uh-oh. I'm pretty sure there's no such thing as a frictionless bearing. He said, no, of course there isn't. So you can counter-rotate it all you want to, but the friction of the bearing is going to drag rotation into the core. So the whole ship rotates, and that's fine. And this piece of engineering solved my problem. It gave me a great solution. It gave me a really interesting looking ship, a real different looking ship, and the physics make sense. I could have just said, I just want the things to spin and I want the center to be stationary, but you can't do it. And this is the kind of science fiction that I want to be doing, is this super hard science fiction where the science is like really, really good. Now, those are not rigid structures. Those are cables under tension. And if you tried to accelerate with those out there like that, then they would just swing back into the back of the engine and smash everything. So basically what it does is, let me see if I can just turn off the audio again this time, and I'll thank you for letting me know about that. So if I, nope. No, let's try this one. So you can see that with them reeled in, hang on a second, I got to do this twice as always here. Yeah, you can see that where they're reeled in, if you look carefully at the modules, you can see there's all kinds of braces and clamps that are holding it in place. So this is what it looks like when you start under thrust, and it's not a lot of thrust, it's probably 1/10 of a G, but it'll do 1/10 of a G for days. And then once the engine cuts off, then with the thing still attached to the core like that, it starts a rotation, and once it starts a rotation, the cables play out slowly over the course of hours, because that'll throw in all kinds of other things in there if you're not careful. But over the course of hours, those things play out. And hang on a minute. Yeah, heck with it. That's what I did last time. Whatever. Sorry, YouTube. So hang on a second. This is so tedious having to do this twice. I can't tell you how tired I am of this. So when it's in cruise mode like that, the whole thing is rotating, and now we get to the really fun stuff, because if you think about it, you've got these two modules that are out there like that. And if you wanted, you got half the crew living in one side, and you got half the crew living in the other side. And if they wanted to talk to each other or exchange something or whatever, then you would have to reel these things all the way back in again, and that's a long procedure, and and it's just tedious and so on. So what I did was I created these transfer modules, and you can see them there in the vertically oriented view with the things extended. They're about halfway up each, and they're synchronized so that they're both exactly the same distance apart from the core as each other. So these things dock to the center section. Let me rephrase that. They stay attached to the hab modules on the outside edges of the things. But if people want to go from one to another, then they get in this little transfer module. It's a little tiny little airlock, tiny little thing, size of a porta potty or something, maybe a little bit big. And then they're both reeled in at the same time so that the thing doesn't come out of balance. They dock at the center there. You can see the little docking port there. You go from one transfer module to the other, and then they reel them both out again so that the thing is never reeled out of balance. And if it turns out you got person in one of them and not enough, and nobody in the other, so you have a slight imbalance, then the computer can adjust the relative positions to keep the thing in pretty much stable position. So this thing basically flies, for 18 months pretty much like this, except for things like, entry burns and all the rest of that stuff. It's a cool looking ship. And then you get something really neat, because I had to come up with a failure mode. And then I had to come up with a failure mode where the backup system had to fail too. I had to, and both of them, the failure had to be believable, and then the failure of the backup had to be believable. But basically, towards the end of the movie here, if you look at those transfer modules, one of them starts to slow down, and it's because it's got a bad bearing. And so it gets closer and closer to the center. You've got a person in one of those transfer modules, and it's getting closer and closer to the center. And the more they try to reel it in, the stiffer this bearing gets, till finally the thing freezes. And then they got to get that person out of there. And so what they have to do is they've got an emergency ladder, like an emergency chute that comes out of an airplane door, that pops out of the core, and eventually the spin will take this ladder all the way out to the habs, and they just kind of latch them down. And so somebody's going to have to climb that distance in a spacesuit, hand over hand over hand, to get from the bottom to the top. And the thing I liked about that was that gave me some tremendously cool looking graphics, and I think I actually have an animation or two of this that I may have shown once before. Give me 1 second. Here to find this, because this is pretty cool. Now these animations I did, I've got a date on them, I think, somewhere. Let's find out. These are movies should play. This was recorded on July 20th, 2020, but that must have been when I moved them. I'll bump a couple of these up there so you guys can see them. So hang on, I got to do it twice. Here's a view. I'll start with Twitch. Here's a view of one of the modules in motion with different texturing on it. Hang on, YouTube, here it comes. Oh, damn it, I did it again. Hang on. Hang on. I'll see if I can run it twice. It's very difficult to resize these things. But it gives you an idea of the thing in motion. And if I click off of it, yeah, there it goes. It cycles there. It didn't cycle over here because I have to hit it again. Does that do it? Okay. Yeah. There you go. So, so that gives you a kind of a cool look at the detail. It's not super high resolution. I think it's probably a 720 rendering, but it gives you a good look at the just the scale, the detail on the model. What is this? That's not it. Got another one from a different angle here, so hang on. Coming to you now into Twitch. These animations I did in no later than 2009, I think. Hang on, YouTube. So you can see there's a lot of kind of cool dynamics going on, and this is old. Come back to me. There we go. You can see the portals on this one. I'm trying to find hang on. Oh, this is a cool view. Here we go into Twitch. And I'll put this into YouTube. Again. Bloody thing. Stop it. Will you stop it? Hang on, I'm running again for you there, Twitch, and you know it's a lot to see here. Does it automatically in YouTube, doesn't do it automatically in Twitch. Why? It's the same software. It's the same company anyway. Yeah, I like this shot a lot. You see that little landing platform there? That's where the thing goes in. You get a couple of portals for that. And then they spend most of their time down there in that heavily shielded area. There's one shot I'm looking for. I haven't seen these animations in a long time. This is it. So it's sets up when they're on the ladder and then somebody falls off the ladder, because that's a thing. It sets up a pretty terrifying hammer effect. Hang on there, YouTube, coming at you. Okay. Do it again if we have to. You're not going to win, you bastards. So everything's in motion, and if you're floating there in space and you see this giant beastie thing coming at you, and you know that's could wreck your best day. Just seeing if I have anything else here that's fundamentally different. I think that's about it. Oh, here's a flyby of the whole ship. Let me make sure it's the whole ship. No, it's just the front of the ship. Hang on. Everybody be cool. All right, here's the whole ship, I think. Hang on a second. Sorry to have to put you through this. I meant to have all this done in advance. So this is what I'm about to show you is the whole ship untextured. So you can see this is all 3D geometry. This is a complex model. Coming up for you here into, here we go into Twitch. Flyby of the whole thing. All of this is geometry. Here we go. Here we go. Come on, you bastard. That's just so frustrating. And here it comes in YouTube. So we've got all these different layers and everything's in motion. But you can see that there's a lot of geometry here. And it was hours to render. This flyby footage, I think, must have taken me 3 days. And now, in Unreal, you know, this is like real time. So with a good texture artist, on this level of geometry, we got to, you know, this is the star of the ship. That's why the movie's called Aurora. That is tremendous detail. This was the thing about the guy that I liked so much about this guy, Galen Reinhardt, was that when I first saw his work, I said, he's not just doing things, he's not just making shapes, he's engineering them. He's putting braces where they need to be, he's putting pulleys where they need to be, all the attachments, makes sense, all of the, one more time here for giggles. And so I would just basically say, I want the airlock, and then I want these cargo things, and then he'd build the cargo things. So look at the detail he put into that girder work, and all of the mechanisms and all of the cables and everything. It's phenomenal work, phenomenal. And so I got the script just sitting here, and I'm thinking to myself, well, Jesus, Bill, maybe you ought to think about, just off the top of my head here, maybe you should just think about doing this, since it's pretty much written, dummy. So there's that. Hang on, just turn all these ones, come on over to YouTube here. So the thing about this movie is it was relatively inexpensive, but this is the kind of thing. Here's what's nice about Aurora. Aurora is essentially in the same line, the same timeline as the colonies. So let me just turn all this off so I can get this picture back. I'm working as fast as I can here. My little pizzas are. Where am I? Where did I go? Okay, back. Talking? No? Talking. Yes, okay. Looks like I'm back. All right, so there you go. Yeah. So I'm thinking, hey, man, why don't you just pick this up and do this? And I think what I will do, so I can do a sizzle reel of the ship stuff. I can do a sizzle reel of the external stuff. I can get it textured for next to nothing. And I can do a sizzle reel of the performances to the same degree that we did with the Major Mace Mattingly interviews. What I don't know how to do, and I cannot spend the time doing this, this is the kind of thing I would do if I was in prison. But I want to take 3D characters. I want to take metahumans from Unreal, get the most realistic looking 3D humans I can get, and then I want to put deep fake faces over the CG characters, because deep fake faces look better than the best metahumans. And then I got a movie. And so there barely there you go. So the whole idea is they get this mission to Jupiter, and then there's the theory is, well, they were going to go to Mars, and they say, well, we're going to Jupiter now, because their theory is, and I thought this was a pretty astute reading of the political situation, even in 2007. Their idea is, as long as they've got a mission and there are humans out there that are depending on them for mission control, they can't shut the company down, because that would kill the people. So they extend the mission. When I say I did research on this, I took a look at the orbits of I don't know how many asteroids. I mean, and I wasn't looking at asteroids. I was looking at comets, burned out comets. And I don't remember which comet it was, but I found one, a real one, where the orbit crosses inside the orbit of Mars. And so the mission plan is, we're going to go to the comet. We're going to try and refuel. If we can't refuel, we've got enough fuel to get back to Earth. And if we can refuel, we're just going to light this thing up. We're going all the way to Jupiter, because Mars is for weaklings. So, there you go. I don't know what the actual numbers are. I worked them out, John. I'm doing it off of memory from almost 20 years ago now. But yeah, I'm just sitting on this, and I'm sitting. There's no reason to do Big Bad Problems other than live action. So anyway, the point of all this is, I just realized I've got all this stuff that's been sitting there forever, not getting any younger. I need to get on this, start doing some fundraisers and getting it done. What I really need, I have a couple people in mind to, be producers on this and a production company. But what I really need is, I need somebody who's had experience with successful crowdfunding, because that is a specific art form. That is, that's something else. I'd have to pull all of my strings and get people to send things there, and I don't know. In any event, I'm just sitting on all this work that's already done, and this is my point, So as far as Aurora goes, my immediate short-term goal is to get Major Mace Mattingly going, because I just love Mattingly. I love the whole thing. I love the political concept. But Mattingly is 2 orders of magnitude simpler than this or the Colonies. But it's the exact same technology, and it's things like motion capture suits or motion capture video. Now we're at the point where my motion capture suits are probably obsolete. Now I can just stand in front of a white screen or a black screen or a whatever, and just walk across the room and sit down, and then AI will examine the video footage, calculate what had to happen in 3D, and then put out a 3D animation file for a 3D character. It just never ends, And effing Greek AZ says bigger sponsors get their names rendered as corporate logos. Yes, and one of the things that's a point in the script for Aurora is that when this thing actually flies, Graves says, "Look." He's saying, somebody says, do we want to put do we want to get sponsors, and do we want to put logos on this thing or something? He says, I want this thing to make NASCAR drivers embarrassed. I want NASCAR drivers to say, it's a little over the top here with the advertising. I want logos on everything. I want every dollar we can get, because it's private business, But the nice thing about this is, not only did they lose the engine, they also lost the primary crew and the backup crew. So now we got the C team on the job, and they have to find a new captain, and they end up finding a sub skipper, because he's the logical choice for this. He's had a chance to work with reactors. He, doesn't matter that he's not been in space. If you really, situation like that, you want a submarine commander, I would think, would be the nearest analog. And this guy's been washed out of the Navy because he had a chance to, well, it's a long story, but basically you see this guy, and he's out there, he's got his cat with him. He's sailing out off the coast of San Diego. He's got a beat up old sloop. He's got a cat on board with a life preserver on it. And he's way off the coast there, and he's checking his watch, and he's checking his charts, and he's looking, and then some safe distance away, a mile or something away, Virginia class attack subsurfaces, and the guys start climbing up to the sail, and he's standing there looking at him, and then as they go past this guy's sloop, they salute like they know the guy, and he salutes back, and then he just keeps on sailing, and the nuclear sub heads into San Diego harbor. And then as you pull back on the sailboat, you realize he's got the dolphins, the submarine service dolphins on the sail. So he was a former attack sub skipper. He was cashiered because he didn't follow orders. He was, during a Chinese crisis, he was I think it was USS California, which is an upcoming, if it's not commissioned yet, I know it's on the line. And the backstory for this guy is, he's in the Straits of Taiwan. He's directly behind a Chinese submarine ballistic missile sub during the Taiwan crisis, and he's got orders to fire if the Chinese sub comes up to launch depth and starts to hover. He's got orders to fire one single ping officially. So the sub comes up there, and I forget exactly what to do. Again, I had it so worked out. I had it so beautifully worked out. And this Chinese boomer comes up to launch depth, and they even open the doors, but he still doesn't fire. It's kind of a take on the Russians that didn't fire and start World War III. And he said the reason I didn't fire was because I had 4 fish in the tubes. I was at minimum range where the torpedoes were armed. I had 100% firing solution. And if I heard him, I guess I don't flood the tubes on a boomer. He was saying, basically his argument was, I still had time to make the shot when I was sure. When I was sure he was going to launch, I had time to kill him before he made the shot. But I didn't see any reason to sink a sub that is just sitting there and doesn't shoot. And so he gets washed out for that, but turns out, it's an interesting judgment call. It's kind of like the same kind of balance that you got in Crimson Tide, which is one of my 3 or 4 favorite movies, and also similar to something in a great movie that nobody's ever seen from the 1960s called The Bedford Incident. Cannot recommend that highly enough. By the way, is he here? Is our friend Lapko here? Look what I brought. Look at what I left at home on the countertop. I have my DVD player, so I can finally see 1, 2, 3, and we can put this thing to bed. All right, let me have a quick look at. Thank you for the super chat from TR. I date from the PJ TV days, and I'm often in the background during TSS. Ignore advice and simply do what you love, Bill. Thank you very much, TR, for the super chats are always appreciated, but the kind words are priceless. So I've already done an hour and a half. If it turns out that we can chomp through the questions relatively quickly, I'll do them. And if I can't, I'm going to have to postpone them. We'll do them next week. I'm sorry about that. I thought you might want to see some cool stuff though, because I need to see it. It gets me fired up, and I realize I think that just the years of work that I put into this stuff, to have it sitting there like that is bad. It's evil. It's not good. So unless there's only like 2 or 3 questions, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to postpone them because I got to get back to this thing, and I can't be up all night. I got to be in tomorrow morning early on working on it too. So if it's just 3 or 4, I can hopefully chew them up. Thank you very much, Mersha, for collating this and curating it, I guess is a better word. Thanks. Let's see what we got. We got a Martin Archer, we got an Ian Nolan, we got a Mersha Dark, we got a Martin Archer, we got a Brandon Younger, we got a Diane Freeman, we got an Eric Blake, we got It Ain't Gonna Happen. Apologies to all of those names I just mentioned. Please post them next Monday. I will not be here Thursday for the Stratosphere Lounge, but I'll be back on Monday. If you can repost them on every one of them, please just put second attempt, and I will get those first. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to tie this one up here after a mere only an hour and 15 minutes. It's just, if I start one question, I just don't think it's fair to other people, and I've got and I've got just ton of stuff that I have to do for the next couple days because I'm leaving 2 days earlier than I thought I would. So, although be perfectly honest with you, I actually thought I was leaving the day after tomorrow, but I'm not leaving until the day after tomorrow, which gives me a little hope for some sleep eventually. All right, so that'll do it. Thanks for putting up with the short show. I hope you enjoyed the animation. It's nice to see things that are, well, I almost said, that aren't vaporware, but the definition of vaporware is computer graphics instead of actual hardware. But since I'm in the computer graphics business and I'm not actually trying to sell actual hardware, it's not really vaporware. It's actually product. So there we go. Again, sorry for the short show, but I thought certainly better than nothing, and I'm going to be gone on Thursday, so I will see you guys next Monday night. This show, like all the rest of the shows, is made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com, who are just awesome and wonderful people who make all this stuff possible and happen, and allow me to live in this palace of black mold that I live in. You cheap bastards! If only there were more of you. If you all just were voluntarily quadrupling your donations, I could live someplace where I'm not being infected by funguses. But hey, just I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad or anything. No, but seriously, honestly, truthfully, it's great to see everybody. And as Natasha points out to me, because I was kind of unaware of it for the longest time, I could be in whatever mood I'm in, but when I come and do one of these shows, I always feel so much better. Been watching you for ages. From Tech Heresy, cool name. Watching you for ages. Wanted to say thanks for your work over the years. During the Rona, my son was taken with spaceflight. How we got them captivated him. Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you, and keep his interest up. And it's my fond hope that I can hire somebody someday. So hire a bunch of people some days. So yeah. Sometimes you're plagued by too many ideas. Too many really top quality ideas can be absolutely crippling. But this is the smartest audience and the best audience in the world. As I've said this 50 times, I've said it 51 times. It's because it's one of my favorite things ever. Old timers have heard this story 10 times. If you haven't, when I was working at PJTV, we had a producer there named Owen Brennan. He was the heart of the thing. All the changes they wanted to make that came down from up top, Owen was just the backbone of this. And not too long before PJTV shut its doors permanently, Owen went on to greener pastures, started his own internet marketing and consulting company. I really liked Owen. We had a couple of head-to-head moments, but that's because we both give a damn about what we do. I didn't forget Taffy 3 Sad Wings. It's all part of the plan. Anyway, we had a sort of a goodbye session at the office, and he just told us all, it was great working with him. We told him we love working with him. And just as he's walking out the door, he said, and this is the reason I say this is because it applies to my audience. We're walking out the door, and he says, "Let me just say one last thing. I would rather work with you guys than with the best crew in the world." And we all went, "Aw," and then we all went, "Wait a minute." This is my favorite backhanded compliment of all time. I would rather work with you than with the best crew in the world. Just, and delivered perfectly, man. Yes, sirree, Bob. Okay, well, anyway, so much for that. Thank you. I turned them into short 10 to 20 minute vignettes instead of full movie. Well, I'll tell you what, Marusha, 10 to 20 minute vignettes is fine with me. Doing little scenes, segments, rather than a sizzle reel, doing a sizzle reel that shows a couple things, but doing one finished scene, one finished 2 minute, 3 minute speech or scene is incredibly powerful marketing tool because it says, I can do this, we can deliver this, here it is. I'm not asking you to imagine it, and I'm not saying we'll eventually get the music in and no, this is it, this is finished product. It's only 2 minutes finished product, but it's finished product. Trust me, I'm a pilot. So that'll do it. All right, thanks again for being with us, everybody. Good night to all of our friends here on YouTube. So we'll see you later there, YouTubios. And again, we'll see you Thursday. We'll see you here next Monday, and I should have some more groovy things in motion, and I'll put something together so we don't have to do all this nonsense like we did tonight. So thanks for being with us, YouTube. We'll see you in a week.